second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes from March 27th. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next item, we have our library board appointments for consideration. We've got a- yeah.
But we're just looking at the weather out there.
Yeah.
We're having some deja
Here we
vu.
go again.
Yeah.
It's not long as bad.
No, it's not as bad.
It's not as bad.
Received a series of nominations over the last month or so for the library board. Most recent new nominees, Patty Lampton, Alan Krenick, and then we had three that were nominated to consider for reappointment, Rick Brown, Joe Duvall, and Paul William. Accept the motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 19 to be determined to appoint Alan Krenick for a January 2021 term.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I just make one comment, and at the chairman's recommendation, I visited with two of the new appointments, Alan and Patty, and my impression of them that they'll make an excellent contribution to the library trustee.
All right, we have any public comment? Okay, seeing none. I do have the opportunity to speak with Alan and had a good conversation with some good citizens. Good to see some new blood. So, if there's no further discussion, we have a motion and a second to accept the nomination of Alan Krenick to the library board trustees with the end date of
2021.
2021. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. I accept the motion to consider Patty Lampman.
Mr. Chairman, I visited with Patty Lampman, and I think that she'll make an excellent trustee. I don't, what I did with what date she's thrown.
January 2021.
2020. Okay, I move that we ratify the appointment of Patty Lampman to 2020.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, any public comment? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to appoint Patty Lampman to the Upper County Library District Board of Trustees with the end date of January 2020. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next. Motion to consider Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chairman, before we make the motion, I'd like to make a couple of comments, if I may. We adopted, or we considered a new appointment policy shortly after Chris and I and Danny were sworn in. There was some public comment that suggested that there are some amendments to that appointment policy would be appropriate. We continued that consideration, I can't remember, it was almost a year, wasn't it? And we incorporated what I thought was most of the amendments into the resolution as it was adopted. Shortly after we adopted it, Alberta County government was presented with a 106 lawsuit that took exception to the appointment policy. The county government spent somewhere approaching $20,000 to defend that thing. From what I hear through the grapevine, so I don't have my facts exactly, is that the library spent something approaching that similar amount. After some months, and I'm going to defer to our attorney here, the resolution of the lawsuit was accomplished through the adoption of an intergovernmental agreement, an IGA. The IGA, I think, was more stringent than the appointment policy. However, it doesn't matter. What does matter is the IGA is as adopted. Now, I'm going to probably be accused of practicing law without a license, but as I read the IGA, it has some very specific requirements. One is that all applications, recommended appointments are considered by the Board of County Commissioners. In the previous, when it was heard about a year ago, there was 2 recommended appointments that were not ratified. And then there's a very strong provision within the IGA that says that a new appointment, a recommended appointment, is to be made within 60 days if possible. The if possible is part of the language. At that time, I recused, or abstained, I'm not sure what the right word is, from voting on 2 of the recommended appointments. One was Mr. Brown and one was Ms. O'Neill. The I did not vote. The other 2 commissioners elected or determined that those appointments were not appropriate and they were not ratified. The provision 11 in the IGA specifically says, upon the BOCC's rejection of a nominee, the library board will submit a new nominee within 60 days after the BOCC notifies the library board that the nomination was rejected if possible. One of the nominees is not a new nominee. So in my, and then over on provision, and again, I'm practicing law without a license. And then item 19 demands or expects specific performance. And again, not being a lawyer, but that to me says that the provisions of the IGA must be recognized and enforced. So one of the nominees, I don't think, although, I'm going to say a couple good words before I say what I'm going to say, is that when I was put on the board, and I served with those 2 people that I decided not to, I recused myself, when those people were put on the board, and I was on it at the same time. The library board was, not the board, the library organization was in severe financial stress. And today, based on the financial report that were given a month or 2 ago by Tim Miller, that it strongly appears that the library board is in much, much better shape now. So I'm in one of those awkward positions where I know that the library has improved over the last 3-4 years, but one nominee to me, based on the IGA, and I'm focusing just on the IGA, not the quality of the individual, is not eligible for being nominated. And when Jill's turn comes up, I am going to recuse myself again, because one of the things you'll find about me, I'm often wrong, but very consistent. And so I'm going to do that again then. The other one that's serving there, she came after me, so I'll vote on it. So my point is here is, in my mind, and I'm going to ask our attorney to advise if my interpretation is reasonably close to being correct.
I think plain reading of the intergovernmental agreement is exactly as described by the commission.
That's kind of a preamble to a motion.
Well, yes. So I've got 2 options. One is not to hear Mr. Brown's nominee at all because he's not eligible, or to move that because he's not eligible, he should not be ratified. Which would you prefer?
Library statute, as I read it, states that if we don't consider a nomination within 60 days, they're deemed appointed. I think it's more appropriate, since we're all sitting here, to actually make a decision on the nomination that was provided. So
Then, much to my regret, I must move that Mr. Brown's nominee be rejected.
motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll open this time for public input if there's any. Yes.
Patty Lantman, 31960 Whitaker Circle. So I'm just trying to understand. So I'm clear, so you're ratifying me. So the reason that you would not ratify Mr. Brown's nomination is because he's been on the board before?
He was nominated previously and denied. The agreement we have with the library is that if an appointee or nominee is denied, then a new nominee is expected.
And he's,
Because statute and bylaws allow for a trustee to serve until replaced, we can get into a do where we don't like a nominee and saying credentially, we've decided no, and that person just keeps coming forward and continues to serve because nobody else can dominate.
and he has been denied why?
That is a matter of record. Welcome to, I'll address some of that. I speak. There was lengthy discussion before that determination was made.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. So what you're saying is that that because he was previously denied, you're not going, are you saying you're not considering him now?
Okay, we are considering the nomination came forward with the letter of the IGA. We should not accept the nomination. We should not positively consider it.
But hasn't this nomination been before you for 60 days? You just haven't ratified it?
It has not been 60 days.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to be clear of the process and what's
And
happening.
if you like, I'll let you read the IGA.
I would like that. That would be great. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other public input? Any other discussion?
I'll just say I've been struggling with what to do on this nomination. Because I wasn't here when the litigation and everything was going on before. I mean, I was in the county, but I wasn't part of this board, and some of that I don't know if I agree with, but what I've been struggling with doesn't have to do really with Mr. Brown. It has to do with the IGA that was signed by the board.
And by the library board.
And by the library board. So that's where I'm coming from. Like I said, it's an agreement that was signed by both parties, and I think that, that was the intent and it should be followed.
Okay, and just to kind of my thoughts, again, I was kind of disappointed to see the renomination come forward after kind of some lengthy back and forth in terms of the lawsuit, the eventual withdrawal of the lawsuit in favor of an intergovernmental agreement that was fairly clear. Now, once the agreement was reached, we did receive nominations to Mr. Brown. Ms. O'Neill came forward for consideration. Those two had been serving in, I believe, expired terms for quite a while at that point as well. At that time, I did make some comments, my thoughts on the matter, and they were mostly centered around the culture of the board and at the time, the Board of Trustees. And fairly specific issues that had continued up to that point. One being some difficulties in actually getting a statutorily complete annual report, even after asked for updates. It was kind of like pulling teeth just to get, again, something that was demanded by statute. And the second was a couple of very well-documented executive sessions held by the board that had some irregularities. It was very clear from minutes after the fact that decisions had been made in executive session, and that was the basis of my denial. At the very least, we should expect out of a government board of directors that's handling taxpayer funds to follow the law. So that was the basis of my original denial. I know Commissioner LaProsse had other comments on fiscal management and concerns that he talked about, but again, that was all matter of public record and really not part of this consideration. In this case, it is disappointing to me because, you know, there was quite a bit of angst, quite a bit of back and forth, but also quite a bit of money, as Mr. pointed out. Here's about $35,000 was spent in taxpayer money to come to an agreement. And there are times when two governments have intersecting or overlapping authorities, there's going to be disagreements, and sometimes the only place that can be worked out is in court. In this case, it didn't go to a court decision, but an agreement was reached. And in order for us to do our job and library to do their job and reduce conflict, and Mr. Brown at our last meeting discussed very openly how he felt the IGA had eased tensions between the boards because we had clear rules, although it's very disappointing to me that, you know, those rules that were agreed to were honored on one side. So that's kind of my comments at this point. We've got a motion, and the motion was to deny reappointment. So a vote of aye at this point would be an indication that we deny this nomination. So having a motion in a second. Yeah.
Marlene Rose again, 33,300 Ridge Road. I know it's difficult on the library side and on the county side, and I've come to the podium before to say how much I care and support the library, but I don't like the friction and I don't like the tension, and I hope that as the decision comes down today, there won't be further tension and friction and lawsuits and things like that, because we as a county and citizens, we all just need to kind of move forward and do the best that we can. I felt like I needed to say that, so.
With that, we'll proceed to consideration of the motion. So those in favor of denying reappointment to Mr. Brown, please say aye. 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 That motion carries. Rick, I do very much appreciate your time in service on the board. And I would say just, you know, we did set these rules in place, and I think, you know, barring altering the IGA, we're both bound by them. You know, there is nothing other than an agreement that would stop nomination again and consideration of Mr. Brown again. I think the outcome in my mind would be the same. But we don't have any authorities. We don't really want many authorities over the library. But personally, I would consider, you know, additional violations of the agreement without at least talking to us about altering the agreement as grounds to truly consider removal, which is the only other power that we have. So
I agree with Chairman Richardson's comments there. I hope you heard the emotion in my voice.
And I do understand the library is kind of, I think it was mentioned at the last one, constrained by who applies, but I do understand that there were potentially 6 nominees. And perhaps the others didn't meet the bar, but anything we can do to assist in recruiting, we're certainly open to that, and that was within the IGA. And this is an offer, a sincere offer. If in the future, if you would like a member of this board, perhaps one that was a previous trustee and understands the workings of the library, or a member of our senior staff to participate as part of the nominating committee, ex officio or otherwise, perhaps we can find candidates that are agreeable to both, and that's just an offer from the two. So the next nominee we have is,
I'll move that we approve Jill Duvall to the library board appointment with a date of January 2022.
I'll just make a comment that Jill is one of the people that has helped turn the library finances around. I'm going to recuse myself because I'm consistent with what I did the last time I served with Jill. It was an honor to serve with her, but I think it would be inappropriate for me to hold a motion.
so that being said, as chair, I can't make a motion, but I can second, so I will second the motion to consider Mr. Walls for reappointment as library trustee. You recused yourself. Comments? Okay. Do we have any public comment on this nominee? Okay. And again, my intent isn't to reopen old wounds, but the IGA that we signed in my mind was an IGA signed by our board and the library board. I think everybody that participated in the development of it should have understood what was in it. Mr. Ball participated as a member of the nominating committee and sent forward a nominee that should not have been forwarded, and I'm assuming voted as a member of that board. The full board sent it forward. So that's my comment. We have a motion and a second.
May I make a comment in response to that?
Yes, you may.
Because I think you misunderstand the timing.
Please hold the mic.
The nominating.
We need a name and an address.
I beg your pardon. Rick Brown, Kiowa. I'm president of the board of trustees for a little while longer. The nominating committee did not set to put forward Ms. Duvall's name. The people that came before that committee were in the group of applicants for the two positions that you ratified today. So it's not correct to say that she participated in putting my name forward as part of the nominating. Okay.
I am corrected, but since you're here as president, she did participate in the vote to determine who was sent forward.
As did the whole board, yes.
Okay.
Except for me.
Okay, nobody. Motion and a second to affirm the nomination of Ms. Duvall to another term, I'm not sure if it's a second, of the library board of trustees. So an affirmative vote would be able to continue her service on the board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Second, and I guess we should have a majority vote is required, so for a split vote would be unopened. Okay, the next we have to consider is Paula Wilderman.
Mr. Chairman, Paula Wilderman was made a trustee to replace me after I was elected to the Board of County Commissioners. I've known Paula for a few years. As far as my impression of her is she is a very bright, well-educated, articulate, hardworking young lady, and I would move that she be ratified.
Second.
Further comment? No? Any public comment?
I have a question.
Can you make?
Patty Lamb, 31960 Whitaker Circle. I'm just asking questions. So she also was part of the board who voted to send nominations forward. So it sounds like, based on your comments, you're kind of treating her differently than what you treated Jill Duvall. So I'm trying to understand that. Because what I heard you just say, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I heard you just say was that the concern was the interest of the IGA and the fact that they had nominated, that she was part of the nomination of Rick Brown to the board.
And that was corrected on that, but I'm not sure what your question is. We haven't made any comments, nor at least I haven't, in terms of Ms. Wilderman at this point. So.
I'm just trying to understand the difference in why you would ratify Paula Wilderman, but you wouldn't ratify Jill Duvall.
We haven't, we haven't
Okay.
taken a vote or discussion on Ms. Wilderman yet. So you're presuming an outcome?
Okay, all right, my apologies, thank you.
Any other comments?
I don't.
Yeah, and again, my logic is kind of the same from my seat and my vote for Ms. Wilderman. She is part of the board that sent forward a nominee that clearly should not have been sent forward. So I feel favorably. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of reappointing Paula Wilderman to the Elbert County Library Board of Trustees, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay. So motion carries. That concludes the business regarding library board appointments. The next item we have is a resolution supporting and organizing the 2020 census complete count.
Difficulties. Eileen Krause, Deputy County Manager. We had a good conversation in our last meeting regarding the organization of the 2020 Census Complete Count Committee. We are less than a year away now from the April 1st, 2020 census date. We are actively looking for volunteers to participate on the Complete Count Committee. There's an application on the county website. So we would be looking for recommendations and referrals of anybody who would like to participate on that. We typically have monthly, every other month meetings for the duration of 2019 and about halfway into 2020. So this is continued from our canceled from our last meeting. So, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I'm good with it. It's kind of my comment from last time. Probably not necessarily at the next meeting, but fairly soon. We're kind of have a proposed charter and deliverables for the body. I know, if I understand, we've got advertising on the county website requesting volunteers. And as we said last time, there's also paid positions, not through this committee, but through the state and the Census Bureau.
So do we need a resolution supporting the organization of the 2020 census, or do we wait until they make the?
No, the resolution gives the authority to establish the committee, work the details, obviously.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the resolution supporting and organizing the 2020 census complete count committee.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution to organize the complete count committee. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, the final item we have for action is child abuse prevention. Sure, thank you. And appreciate it. last year, we actually had it on the agenda as Child Abuse Month. So we want to be clear that we
Not a good thing, not a good thing. Well, good morning. Thank you all for your time. I'm Sherry Hanson. I'm Protective Services Administrator for the Department of Health and Human Services over Child Welfare and Adult Protection Services. Normally, Jerry and I do this sort of as a tag team thing. I make a few comments about kind of what's going on in our department, and she reads the resolution, but she's off this week, so I get to do both. So, thank you again for your time. And I just want to say, for the last 3 years, I've come to this meeting and given you some statistics and kind of tossed out all kinds of numbers, and that's a little bit dry. So, yes, our referral numbers are continuing to increase, and as I think all of you have heard about in various other manners throughout this meeting, with the growth in the county, I'm anticipating that that's going to continue. But what I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about one of the families that we worked with so that you have a picture of what we do, because often that's not what you hear about when a local Department of Human Services makes the news or social media. It's not about what we're doing right. It's usually about what we're doing wrong. So we received a referral regarding a baby that had been born prematurely to parents who admitted to a history of methamphetamine and marijuana use. 3 previous children had been born to this couple. All of them had been exposed to drugs. There was a history of domestic violence. The father of the children was unemployed. So our caseworker went out to interview this family, thinking that we would likely be looking at having to place 4 children in foster care. However, when the caseworker met with the couple, she kind of took a different approach. She engaged with the family, listened to what was going on with them. She was able to get them to talk about their drug use, about their history of unsuccessful treatment in the past, about their strong desire to raise their children in a stable home, and about the support that they received from extended family members. They agreed to do a safety plan, which included they would move in with extended family members and that they would ensure that there was always a safe and sober caregiver for all of the children, and required the extended family to notify law enforcement and the caseworker if the parents left the home with the children. So because of the history of this family and because of the seriousness of the report, our department decided to file a dependency and neglect petition with the court. However, we did not request that the children be removed from their parents. Our department was granted protective supervision of the children, and the parents retained custody, and the court ordered a treatment plan, which included substance abuse treatment and monitoring, in-home services to provide parenting and life skills support. The couple searched out and engaged in a faith-based substance treatment program. And that's really important because they sought that treatment program out. It was their choice. Families know themselves the best. We don't. So throughout the case, there were no positive tests for methamphetamine. They reported that this treatment program gave them insight into their use and helped them to overcome it. They were able to find employment, both parents, successfully completed their treatment plan, and they moved into their own home. When the judge closed the court case, which was last fall, he praised them for their diligent work. He praised them for being open about their struggles instead of being defensive and trying to hide what was going on. And he praised them for doing what they needed to do in order to keep their children. As of today, there have been no new reports on this family, and in my opinion, that's a huge success. The reason I wanted you to hear about the family, that this particular family, is to underscore the crucial message that the most effective way to prevent child abuse is to strengthen families. Some of you may be aware of the Family First Prevention Services Act. This is a landmark piece of legislation, bipartisan legislation, that was signed into law in February of last year. In a nutshell, if you're not familiar with this, the Family First Prevention Services Act redirects federal funds to provide services to keep children safely with their families and out of foster care. When foster care is needed, the act allows federal reimbursement for care in family-based settings and certain residential treatment programs for children with emotional and behavioral disturbance requiring special treatment. Currently, I'm serving on the statewide implementation team as a representation of rural counties to develop a plan for Colorado to put this legislation into action. I have to tell you, this is exciting legislation. And while changes always create some challenges, Our department will continue to work toward making sure Elbert County families have access to the services they need to keep their children safely at home. As part of this effort, I really encourage any of you that have concerns about a child being the victim of abuse or neglect, please call the statewide child abuse hotline at 1-844-CO4-KIDS to make a referral. I have some cards back there and some pens that we'll put somewhere to pass out, but that's kind of the update from us for this year. And then I also have the resolution for child abuse prevention month. Prevention month, not child abuse. Okay. So,
Before we go to the proclamation,
yes.
and I appreciate you not blaming us with numbers.
No worries. I know it gets.
We get the CSNAPs and other reports, and I
Yes,
appreciate
they're
that as well. As you did mention, our referral numbers are increasing, and I'm not asking you to do public math.
It's okay.
Even if the answer I got, feel that. Do you know how that compares with the population rate growth? Are they tracking the population growth, or
No,
are they
that's-
accelerating or below?
I would love to tell you that I knew exactly how to do that. I don't. I know that the last numbers that I have is that there's approximately 25,000 people in the community. I don't know how many of them are children. I don't have that number broken down. But I know that our referral numbers have increased steadily over the last couple of years. I think last year we were at 356 or so. And we generally work with about 100 families a year. That's kind of stayed fairly consistent, although the referral numbers are increasing.
Growth rate seems to have been about 1.5% of the population. Again, I don't know.
Yes, hopefully it's not an explosion. We can live with steady growth. It's the explosions that are hard, like cyclones, same sort of thing.
Yeah, so, no, I appreciate it. Like I said, just as we track over time, this is not like today, but as we track over time, I think we want to see if rates are accelerating faster than population or below. As you said, the education, helping families help themselves is a big piece of it. So, any comments or questions? Okay. I ask you to save us by reading the proclamation.
Sure
Our
thing.
resolution.
I can do that. Okay, so Elbert County children are our most precious resource. Concerning recognition of the month of April 2019 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas children have a right to thrive, learn, and grow to their full potential, and whereas children are key to our community's future success, prosperity, and quality of life, while children are our most precious resource, they are also our most vulnerable. And whereas strengthening families is one of the most effective ways to prevent child abuse and neglect, ensuring the opportunity for children to develop in healthy, trusting families, schools, and neighborhoods. And whereas when we ensure the healthy development of the next generation, they are more likely to contribute positively to our communities and be productive, responsible citizens. And whereas families can also be made stronger when they are educated about the various stages of child development and age-appropriate child behaviors. Early identification of any developmental or behavioral concerns is integral to keeping children safe. And whereas we all play a role in preventing child abuse and neglect, and there are ways everyone can get involved to help a child, even those individuals who aren't raising a child or working with children every day. Just one person has the power to make an extraordinary difference in the lives of both children and families. And whereas the state is currently implementing initiatives for improving the safety and well-being of children and families in Elbert County and across Colorado, and whereas we must come together as partners to keep children safe and extend a helping hand to children and families in need, and whereas we will work to ensure that our children will grow to their full potential as the next generation of leaders, helping to secure the future of our communities, state, and nation. And whereas we call upon our residents to provide safe, stable, and nurturing relationships and environments for our children, free of violence, abuse, and neglect. And now therefore, be it resolved by the Elbert County Board of County Commissioners that we, the members of the Elbert County Board of County Commissioners, proclaim April as Child Abuse Prevention Month in 2019, that we encourage every person to play a role in preventing child abuse and neglect, and that we call upon all citizens, community, and faith-based organizations businesses, and government agencies of Elbert County to increase their efforts to strengthen families, thereby strengthening this community and the state of Colorado.
I would accept a motion to adopt this proclamation.
I'll move,
Go ahead.
I'll move that we adopt the proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the proclamation. Any discussion? Thank you for what you do and your staff does.
You're welcome.
Yes, we have a vote.
Yeah, do we have any public input on this? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion and a second to adopt the proclamation. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.
I don't know where you want me to leave these, but everybody is welcome to them. I have cards and pens. Pens is cool things if I can set them in here. Probably the easiest place to bring to.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, moving on to board planning. Items for our next meeting, which I believe is March 24th.
Would that be April?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, I want to get a third bite at the store. From this meeting, I guess the items that would continue to roll are the referral bonus program to consider if you're ready at that point. Updates on the facilities and IT project plans, potentially a report on our next blizzard today.
We also have a new hotel restaurant liquor license coming before you.
Okay, so we'll have hearings when noticed.
Yes. And the
What is
bio
that?
waste, the
It's a
bio waste.
hotel slash.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
License. I got it.
It's the type of liquor license.
Yeah, depending on how things move along, keep us informed on the facilities thing. We want to make sure and keep the public involved to the extent it's appropriate.
I don't really have anything.
Okay, yeah, and then I think we're getting closer to having a firm plan to address the XX and
Yeah.
non-zone parcels. If we could just get a quick update on the timeline for that.
You want to do that during land use? You want to do it?
I'd rather do it
Do it
here.
here?
It affects the county as a whole.
Yeah, there's more public involvement here than.
There'll be some pretty extensive notices in the paper. And then I guess just our minutes from this meeting.
Did you want to, in the discussion part, talk about when we will be updating the regulations again, or is it a little premature?
Not sure we have an exact date.
I don't think we have the exact dates yet, but that's probably something we can bring up in that discussion. But our intent, we've kind of adopted the wholesale rewrite of zoning and subdivision regulations after the 2-year period and recognized like any work of man, they're not going to be perfect. So our intent is about every quarter to pre-schedule a hearing to consider potential changes to catch flaws or clarify things that weren't as clear as we thought they were and should. Generally, or what we have on the calendar next was to take a recess until 1 o'clock to consider land use with the storm coming in. We've coordinated with the applicant to move that to our meeting on the 24th, but since it was publicly noticed for this afternoon, I would accept a motion to open and continue the special use hearing until April 24th at 1300.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I move that we open a land use hearing and then recognize because of the storm that we will continue it till April 24th, 19th.
And I just would recommend specifying the SU number.
Okay, the land use hearing that we are continuing with is to your special use review SU 180041, Once Upon a Time Wedding Venue.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open and continue a hearing on the Once Upon a Time Wedding Venue to 24th of April at 1300. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Everybody be safe.
Yeah, please. And if you see your neighbors trying to go out, ask them to stay home. All right.
So now I'll move that we adjourn.
Good. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned.